Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adora. My name is Adora Okole. I'm the Programs Executive with the Tony Elumelu Foundation, and welcome to today's Toe Way Series. We are honored to have Madam Angela Anike on the call. Unfortunately, we have sincere apologies to the French and Portuguese speakers. The translator, Foucault and Nadia, our translators, Foucault and Nadia, is unavailable today. However, we have made provisions to send you the recorded versions in French and Portuguese after the session. So we ask all our participants on the call to ensure you have a notepad and a pen to take detailed insights as you be applying a lot of principles to your business. So we are honored to have you, Madam Angela. Thank you.
Thank you, Adora. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, Ma.
Okay. So thank you, Adora. So welcome, everyone. Good day. This is the last webinar, and I hope so far it's been beneficial to all of you, and you've been able to apply it to your businesses, to your business plans, to enhance your business plan, to enhance the execution of your business plan and your aspirations. So today's the last session. Like I said, we'll be focusing on a few leadership nuggets from sessions Thierry had in the past, where one has drawn some, quotes from those sessions that I think would be beneficial to you. One is on, his turnaround lessons. Remember, in the first session, we spoke about his turnaround expertise. And then the second will be on general leadership in business. So let's get started. So let's listen to let's look at what Thierry says about the key success factors for a turnaround. Remember, that's one of his areas of competence, turning around businesses that seemingly are dead. And this is what Thierry has to say. It says, in our group, we're known for how to turn around businesses. And, he gives the example of how it turned around Crystal Bank into Standard Trust Bank, which is now part of UBA. And he speaks about how we had a clear vision from day one of what we wanted to achieve in the financial services industry. So that speaks to how you guys should make sure you have a clear vision from day one as to what you want to achieve in your industry. He goes on to say, we set clear goals. Remember, we had a session where we talked about clear goals and celebrating milestones. And he said we set out clear goals, which we labeled our strategic intent and worked assiduously to ensure we met them. Says today, UBA Group operates in 20 African countries, the UK, France, the UAE, and the USA. And he talks about following his retirement as the CEO of UBA, setting up Hares Holdings, his family investment firm, and the acquisition of Transcorp PLC. And he goes on to talk about, at the time when Transcorp Group started, at the time that Hares Holdings acquired Transcorp Group, Transcorp PLC, there was only a hotel. The only asset that Transcorp Group had at the time was a hotel. And today, Transcorp plays in the hospitality, power, both in the generation and distribution sections, and in oil and gas, he says these are key lessons that he wants to share as to how one was able to do that, how he was able to do that. And he talks about his philosophy of Afro-capitalism, which is investing in strategic sectors of the economy that not only create profit, but also create social wealth for communities in which we operate. So I think it's important to note that whatever business you're in, you're noting that you need to not only create profit, but create social wealth you know, and he says it's the philosophy that drives our business, but it's also what drives the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Why he has catalyzed thousands of young entrepreneurs, you guys, across Africa. Why he has funded, trained, and mentored them to create a new generation of Afro-capitalists. So this is what he's hoping to achieve, you know, and what he's achieved, you know, with you guys over the years since 2015, funding, training, and mentoring to create a new generation of Afro-capitalists, people who invest not only to create, to invest in strategic sectors and create not just financial wealth, but social wealth. I think this is critical. So some of the key nuggets that one took away from that session is basically, it says leadership. Leadership is important. It says assemble the best in the industry who possess a turnaround mindset to transform the state assets and set performance targets for them. We talked about that when we talked about performance management and reward. It says create a high performance environment. So, you know, just take these lessons, you know, note that leadership is important, note that you should get the best and, you know, create a high performance environment, measure, set goals, measure performance, celebrate, you know, the milestones and reward performance. Very, very key. And he goes on to say, you know, corporate governance is another nugget. It says build a strong governance structure, including a strong board with seasoned private sector professionals and empowered executive management team. It says balance this with non-executives who bring objectivity and experience. So obviously, you know, you're a startup. The scale at which, you know, your corporate governance operates will be different. But the important thing is to ensure that you have strong corporate governance. You know, you imbibe that culture. Thirdly, besides, decide early what kind of business you want to be. And for him, this has to be one of long-term thinking. Remember, remember that in the last session, we learned that entrepreneurship is a long-term journey. So, you know, he says, have long-term thinking, one that values excellence in all areas and is strong on corporate governance. He keeps talking about strength in corporate governance. And he says, focus on execution, 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 and reward, and non-interference in management. So these are key messages in terms of decide what kind of institution you want to be in the long run. Culture says have a culture of excellence. Says you have to have an improvement mindset, a hunger for operational excellence. So just keep getting better, keep getting better, keep getting better at what you do. And obviously it'll build your brand and your aspirations. And then lastly, it says risk management, continuous review of the operating environment to identify and mitigate emerging portfolio risks. So this is what TOE has to say in terms of the lessons or nuggets that you can derive from his turnaround expertise. So I'll pause there and see if anyone has any questions, comments before I go into the other leadership lessons and learning points that TOE shared with us at one session. So the first part was about turnaround. Turning around a business. But, you know, turning around a business, the nuggets that apply to turning around a business also apply to your business. You know, leadership, corporate governance, risk management, excellence, operational excellence, they all apply. And remember the balance of profit and social wealth. So maybe you guys want to share what you're doing on the social side.
Okay, I'm just waiting for comment
Okay.
on the Okay, I have a comment from Edison. He said, I am glad that as entrepreneurs, we should not only look at profits, but also social progress. Glad for that, Ma.
Mhm. Good.
Um, Kazuha said, effective leadership is equal to the key to a high performance environment. A question from Emerald. He said, Ma'am, please can you throw some light on the functions of a non-executive? Okay, we have another comment from ETC Vibes. Strong leadership can drive a startup's success by inspiring innovation, fostering a positive culture, and guiding strategic decision. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, okay. Akozie Nwodika. On the social side, I adhere to the triple bottom line by ensuring sustainable practices. Shani, as as a startup, I may not be able to have a very stable management team, but I believe with what you have equipped me with, I should be first to become a professional in my business. Derek, okay, Semesa, I think Semesa is asking a question. Are performance indicators universal or they vary from one business to the other? Another question not question, from Jeremiah, comment from Jeremiah. TOE is not just satisfied with transport. Inspired by the way TOE dive into other sector and is successful as well. Inspired indeed. Afiwe, profiting balance is important. Label Gang's comment, empowering youth from disadvantaged background through casual work employment. Mary Andrew said, as an entrepreneur, we should have a culture of excellence. This is so inspiring. Wonderful Josephine. Deciding early what my business should look like keeps me focused on my goals. Okay, I think that's about the comments we have on the comment
Okay.
box.
Thank you for your comments. Always very useful. And let me just try to answer the two questions I think I got. One is on non-executive, the role of the non-executive, and then performance indicators. Do they vary from industry to industry? So let me talk about the non-executive. So on a board, in a typical board, you would have executive directors and non-executive directors. You would have the chairman of the board. Usually the chairman of the board is separate from the CEO. The CEO is an executive director, just like the name suggests. So an executive director is one that is involved in management, involved in the day-to-day operations of the company. So I imagine that all of you are the CEOs of your business, so you're all executives, so to speak. Non-executive directors are directors that are not involved in management. They're not involved in the day-to-day. So typically you would find that in a board, board meetings maybe are held quarterly, and non-executive directors participate in those board meetings. Their role, I would just collapse into the role of the board. The role of the board is one, strategic direction, oversight, so providing strategic direction to management in terms of, for instance, what are your long-term aspirations, oversight, helping you with your decision-making, obviously, as empowered by the shareholders, and what have I left out? Oversight, decision, and then policy, setting policies for, so for instance, your HR policies, what HR policies should you put in place, etc. I hope I have answered the question on the non-executive. And obviously you have committees, depending on the size, the scale of the business, but I would imagine as a startup, you wouldn't have that yet. Performance indicators definitely vary from industry to industry. They vary from company to company. It would depend on what your strategy. One of the quotes from TOE earlier was on strategic intent. What is your strategic intent? and what goals have you set for yourself regarding your strategic intent, regarding the time frame for achieving those, and then what are the parameters, what measurements have you put in place to ensure that these goals are met? What targets have you set for yourself? We talked about goals earlier. And so those performance indicators would differ from, you could have 5 companies in one industry, and they would all have different performance indicators. And obviously you have performance indicators even within the organization in terms of HR performance indicators, finance performance indicators, marketing performance indicators. For instance, marketing performance indicators, you may say for that yourself, or you want to achieve so many followers on LinkedIn, so many followers on X, so many followers on Instagram, etc. So they would vary from company to company, from industry to industry, from department to department, from function to function, from person to person within the organization. So yes, just answering your questions. Okay, so moving on, we're going to be going into leadership lessons and learning points from another session that Thierry had. And, the whole idea from these leadership lessons and learning points is see how they can apply to you. See how they can apply to your business. They may not even apply today, but they're just notes that you take for the future. So in that session, Thierry talked about relentlessness being a key leadership attribute. And he said, the dictionary defines relentlessness as showing or promising no abatement of severity, intensity, strength, or pace. And Thierry says, be ambitious and be focused on that ambition. Do not be distracted from the path to your ambition. Dare to apply for an opportunity even when you do not qualify. He says, try, have an open mind, find out what it takes to succeed in the space you've identified to play in. Do not see impossibilities. He says, once the self-willingness is there, the solution will come. And so as an example, a case in point, Thierry, very early in his career, saw an advert for a job at Allstate's Trust Bank. And the criteria for the job was a minimum of a second-class upper, 2-1. Thierry did not qualify as he had a second-class lower. But in spite of this, Thierry applied for the job. In his application letter, he wrote that even though he did not get a 2-1, this was not due to the fact that he was not smart and he would like to be given a chance to get the job. And Thierry got the job. So that's the key lesson. The second nugget is Thierry says, do not be too detached. Says there's a difference between delegation and abdication. It's situational, organization specific, and it depends on your control environment. But what does the dictionary say about delegation and abdication? Delegation is the assignment of any responsibility or authority to another person, normally from a manager to a subordinate, to carry out specific activities. It is one of the core concepts of management leadership. However, the person who delegated the work remains accountable for the outcome of the delegated work. Abdication is failure to fulfill a responsibility or duty. You are too detached. So that's on delegation and abdication. And case in point that Thierry is saying, do not be too detached. He says, Ebitimi Banego, the then CEO of Allstates, using this example, the first example where Thierry applied for a job that he didn't qualify for based on the criteria that had been set by Allstates. He says the then CEO of Allstates, when Thierry applied for the job, he went through Thierry's application letter. He went through every application letter. If he did not do this, he would not have come across Thierry's application and not seen the fact that Thierry did not qualify and yet applied. He says Thierry, and then, so that's an example Thierry gives about not being detached. The second example he gives, he says, when UBA and STB, when the merger took place, Thierry went through every HR file for managers and above after the UBA STB merger. So let's you remember how Thierry think people very, very critical, and he said that we learned that as a Thierry way. and how important recruitment is. So for instance, you could say to yourself in your startup that you will interview every candidate. You will interview every candidate for a job in your organization. You may, some people may choose to delegate that to maybe HR, delegate that to maybe the head of the department that is hiring, but you may choose on your own not to be detached and to get involved in every aspect of hiring, given that you're a startup, just as an example. Moving on, says age is not a factor. It says leadership is not a function of age. It says you can be appointed a leader at a very young age and be required to lead those older than you. Sorry about that. You can be appointed a leader at a very young age and be required to lead those older than you. Those who were even possibly previously your leaders and even your friends. It says leadership is about being the first amongst equals. So you must be prepared to be humble. You need to be humble to succeed. Being a leader does not entitle you to lord it over others. And a case in point, he says, Banigo became CEO at a very young age, and trusted TOE to be a branch manager in his home state at a very young age. Remember, TOE was appointed branch manager at the age of 26. You recall this from the very first webinar we had. TOE was appointed branch manager and had to supervise people who were older than him and even his friends. So age is not a factor. Fourthly, TOE says, know what it takes to succeed. And this is belaboring the point. Remember in the session around turnaround, TOE says, know what you intend to be in the long term. And so he says, know what it takes to succeed on the job. You must visualize success internally to succeed. At the start of any assignment, ask yourself the question, what does it take to succeed? Embed yourself in the community. If you're not part of the community, you cannot do well. Remember, we talked about creating social wealth. So even apart from a financial point of view, you also want to be a part of the community so you can know where you can add value and create social wealth for the community in which you operate. It says there are peculiarities in every market, understand them and develop tailored solutions. Understand your profit and cost drivers, understand financial statements, identify risks. Remember, he talked about risks being important. So not just making profit. Remember, you need to also know the risks and prefer mitigants to address these risks. And then note that people are key to business success. And the case in point, Thierry says when he was appointed branch manager, he did not have an operations background. And on his own, he shadowed a cashier, a teller, ahead of his relocation to Port Harcourt to acquire the necessary knowledge. Also, he embedded himself in the community and quickly understood the market. He developed a tailored solution for the market and created invoice discounting facility. He obtained approvals from his bosses and rolled out commitment letters to his target market. TOE's branch manager became the most profitable, TOE's branch became the most profitable branch at all states, more than the combined profits of other 34 branches, so he really knew what it took to succeed. How to succeed in sales. I mean, every business has sales. Says you cannot sell a product or service you do not understand. In everything we do, product knowledge is key for success. Undergo rigorous and stringent training to understand the product. And the case in point that Thierry gives is his first job was on selling photocopy machines, and he went through stringent, rigorous training every morning, and even on the sales process and the technicalities of a photocopying machine. I'm halfway through the learning points from leadership. Let me pause here and take comments, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, ma. We have a comment from Justice Arthur. Said, as an entrepreneur, we have to pay attention to details. This is my take home. Telime, you can't do well if you are not part of the community. Emephisi's comment, thank you for reminding me that I need to be humble to succeed in my business. Anna Yochuku and Yekwe's comment, this resilience is very important for entrepreneurs to succeed in carrying out their business's milestone. Mary Adeleke, she started his leadership at a tender age. Indeed, age is not a factor. Kayode's comment, KPI is very crucial for productive results. It doesn't just drive productivity, but also measures the progress attained and thus leads to progressive performance at every key milestone. Emmanuel's comment, as entrepreneurs, we have to get ourselves prepared and equipped to take on opportunities when they come, never to be caught unawares. Another comment from Shani. I've always done the thing of applying to different opportunities, even when I know I didn't qualify. And I'm happy TOE has encouraged me more on this. John Bosco comments, stakeholders that lead to success must be identified and aligned with. At IPALA, I think that's the business name, this has been our philosophy. Max's comment, age, leadership, resilience, work hard, and looks important for success. Upskill tech, you have to integrate well with the community you serve to succeed. Salawu Rufai, thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful insight. Indeed, delegation in business is very crucial and needs to be adopted. Nenga, sorry, showing up and applying for opportunities even when you do not qualify. I got my first job without the full requirements and I proved myself. I actually became the project coordinator. I think those are about the comments we have. Oh, we have another one from Omoumi. TOE has a great vision and he works towards it. Thank you for your comments. Over to you, Ma.
Thank you. So moving on, those were very good comments and very good examples, and I'm glad you guys are applying it. So next, people are key to success. You know, you've heard this repeatedly. I'm sure you guys all know that, you know, one quote, TOE says, talent I don't have, I don't regret. I surround myself with people who have them. So people are key to success. And he says, people are key to success. People should be empowered. Organizations must support their business drivers and give them access. People should not be scared of you as a leader or be unable to air their views. Organizations that are too hierarchical and do not allow people to air their views do not do well. People management is key. You cannot be a successful leader if you do not know how to manage people, as results are achieved through people. During interviews, look for passion and for other areas of interest. Place round pegs in round holes. And the case in point, you know, Thierry says, as branch manager, Banigo had observed that Thierry had a director's profile. You know, he says staff could not be imposed on him. If Thierry felt someone should be promoted, the person was promoted. Thierry was empowered. As CEO of STB, Thierry sat on an open floor with his executives. This gave his executives and staff access to him. Thierry eats in the staff canteen at Hare's Holdings and encouraged UBA to adopt this. At STB, Thierry was involved in recruitment. Remember, I told you to, you know, get involved in recruitment and getting the people equation right was key. Please give me a minute. There's an urgent call I need to take. Just give me a minute, please. Apologies for that. So that was the case in point for people are key to success. The next nugget is no sentiments. An organization is a constellation of people, but we must have an ethos, is what Thieu says. An ethos in the dictionary is a Greek word meaning character that is used to describe the guiding beliefs or ideals that characterize a community, nation, or ideology. It is a fundamental character or spirit of a culture, the underlying sentiment that informs the beliefs, customs, or practices of a group or society, dominant assumptions of a people or period. And remember, we'd learned that, the culture and the organization that you're creating is going to be informed by you, the leaders, you, the CEOs, you, the startup promoter. You're the one that's going to determine the ethos of your organization. And here he's saying, build an ethos that has no sentiment. Says drop sentiments and surround yourself with the right people. An organization that encourages people to gossip and backbite, leadership must stamp out immediately. Indiscipline and creating an air of untouchables destroy organizations. Sometimes you have to take certain actions on untouchables to break the myth. No sentiments. Poor performance will always whip up sentiments. As a leader, you may fall for this, but reverse yourself when you realize it. People who compete internally are on a self-destruction path. This happens when meritocracy is not upheld. In reality, performance management systems are not perfect. Strive for a performance management system that has a minimum of 80% confidence level. Ensure you reward and promote the right people. And then going on, it says psychophancy kills institutions. Psychophancy is linked to tribalism. It says, let the best man get the job. Remember, one of the quotes earlier was that, ensure you're getting the best people in the industry. So you don't want psychophants, you want the best. Someone should not, and then one quote he says, someone should not lose something because they're close to you. But he says someone should also not get something because they're close to you. He says there should be a balance. He says leadership should not speak differently. There should be no camps. Camps polarize institutions because camps lead to self-interest and no longer corporate interest. Decision-making and execution says the most difficult thing to do is make decisions. The difference between successful and unsuccessful leaders are the decisions they make. And remember, no decision is not good. Remember, one of the things we learned was make a decision within 24 hours. Leaders should not make or respond to your subordinates within 24 hours with a yes or no. Leaders should not make suboptimal decisions. People see through every decision you make. So make sure you can defend your decisions. At times, seemingly difficult paths may create monumental impact. Things are not always easy. Once a decision is made, however, quickly translate the decisions to actions. And so the case in point that he cites is STB had two options. To achieve its strategic intent of being one of the top 10 banks. So they had the strategic intent of being one of the top 10 banks in the banking industry in Nigeria. And two options would have gotten them there. One was to acquire Crystal Bank, a distressed bank, and the other was to acquire Magnum Trust Bank. Magnum Trust Bank was a bank that was in clearing and owned by one of the new generation banks. Thieu made a decision to acquire Crystal Bank, even though it was distressed, as he felt the impact of the turnaround would be more. And really, this really earned the turnaround expertise, character that he has, or as attributes that he has. At a retreat at the Bellissimo, the decision was reached to merge with UBA. Thieu put this into action immediately following the retreat, Theo did not go to work at STB for 1 year while he worked on this transaction, and he delegated the role to two of the former CEOs of UBA. So decision-making, key. Corporate interests at all times, number 9. In the corporate arena, there's corporate and there's self. Corporate is above self. Separate personal and official issues. You must separate self from corporate. Competition is external. Do not ignore competition. Put them on your radar, but do not magnify them to such an extent that the organization begins to feel inferior. Corporate interests at all times. A case in point that he cites is in 2010 when the Central Bank of Nigeria retroactively imposed a CEO tenure limit of 10 years. TOE presented his arguments from the viewpoint of 5 stakeholders to the UBA board. 1, he says the investing public would not want UBA to challenge the regulator. Staff would not want UBA to challenge the regulator. Customers would not want UBA to challenge the regulator. Regulators would not want UBA to challenge them. And TAU, even though TAU would have liked to remain the CEO. So at the end of the day, he presented the case that he was only one of 5 stakeholders, and therefore the board should accept the decision of the regulator and appoint his successor. TOA's successor was appointed within 48 hours of the CBN's decision. So decision-making was made promptly, and also it was corporate interest over individual interest. So recognize that in the decisions that you make. Focus on shaping your image. Pay attention to reputational management, marketing, and corporate communications. Remember, we've spent a lot of time on that. Set out how you want the world to see you. When the world sets how you're viewed, it is difficult to change that. So recognize that. Remember, we spent a lot of time on branding. And Thierry, the case in point, Thierry says at STB, Thierry motivated his team to write a generational statement. Remember, I gave you the quote on that we're going to write a generational statement and compel people to believe in us through our achievements. So this is what he's saying. It says, and to democratize banking. And we talked about that in one of the webinars. Thierry believed that results should speak for themselves, and therefore he ignored branding and corporate communications. Nature opposed a vacuum, and the public tagged Thierry and his team cowboys. When Thierry started Hares Holdings and the Tony Elumelu Foundation, he intentionally focused on branding so as not to repeat the mistake he had made at STB. Emotional intelligence is key. Ensure you have social awareness. The dictionary says social awareness gives you ability to understand and respond to the needs of others. Understanding other people's feelings is not the dictionary, actually. It's Daniel Coleman, an emotional intelligence expert. It says understanding other people's feelings is central to emotional intelligence. So make sure we're all socially aware. Communicate. Humility is key. Leaders must be able to listen. Some people do not speak, so leaders need to be watchful and draw out their views. A case in point that Thierry cites on emotional intelligence was that soon after the merger, a senior staff approached Thierry to be appointed ED. Thierry advised him that the process would be merit-driven, and he was not involved. The selection process went through professionally, and this person was not selected. And in fact, some EDs at STB had to step down as EDs. Thierry realized many years later that he made a mistake by not communicating the decision personally to the senior staff who had approached him for the appointment. So he's saying that he was not, he did not apply emotional intelligence in that process. Leadership is situational. Leadership is situational and depends on the stage of development of the organization. Every phase of our professional life calls for an adjustment. And, you know, there are things Thierry did in a startup like STB that a large organization cannot do, as these institutions are different and at different stages of development. You know, at the helm of Hares Holdings and TF, Thierry is focused on entrepreneurship and propagating Afro-capitalism, as we heard earlier, and ensuring these institutions are built to last. and corporate governance is pivotal to that. And so in summary, some constants for success: people management, ability to recruit, develop, assess, reward, and discipline people. Define the direction and goal and focus on it, with the long term in mind. Define milestones and measure as you go along. Discipline of getting things done, turning ideas into action. Great leaders are tough on discipline. Great leaders are fair but firm. Great leaders have a strong culture ethos and are involved in driving it. They preach it, show it, propagate it. They protect it and do not tolerate deviance. And just in closing, many people who have worked with TOE have indicated that one thing that has motivated them while working with TOE is his belief in them. TOE has given them jobs that stretch them. So the lesson is believe in your staff and watch the results. So on that note, this brings the end to webinar 4 and the end to the webinar series for the TOE Way. And I'd like to take comments, questions, and bring this to a close. It's really been a great 4 weeks.
Thank you so much, Ma. So we expect your comments, your questions. We have a comment from Xavier. He said, thank you for this masterclass. As an entrepreneur, this is an inspiration for those having clear vision and goal. Okay, we have a question from Justice Athol. He said, drop sentiment and surround yourself with the right people. How do we do that? Okay, a comment from Thelma. Being a part of the community and finding out was to improve the community. Finding out what to improve the community.
Let me just take that question on
Okay.
dropping. So, the bottom line is you have to be objective. You have to create an environment that is performance driven. Remember, let me go back to that quote at the beginning on culture. I think there are a lot of lessons. Sorry, I'm just looking for where that is. He says, create a high performance environment. He says, assemble the best in the industry. So if you're recruiting for the best, you're not recruiting based on someone telling you, please hire my brother or hire my sister or hire my niece, hire my wife, you're hiring the best. So there's nothing wrong with hiring the wife, the niece, the nephew, and all this, but make sure they're the best in the industry. So hire the best. And then he says, create a high performance environment. So reward performance. You're making sure that you're setting goals for everyone. You're setting targets, you're setting performance targets, and you're rewarding these targets when they're met. So if you create that kind of atmosphere, a high performance atmosphere where you've recruited the best, you've set goals for the best, and you're rewarding them when they achieve them, you will create that high performance environment. And then going on to this, where he says no sentiments, sorry, just give me, I'm trying to find. It says, psychophancy kills institutions. Psychophancy is linked to tribalism, so all those things. Don't surround yourselves with suboptimal people. Don't surround yourself with the best. And he says someone should not lose something because they are close to you. Someone should also not get something because they are close to you. So don't hire because someone is close to you. Hire the best. And he says people who compete internally are not on a self-destruction path. He says poor performance will always whip up sentiments. He says, as a leader, you may fall for this, but reverse yourself when you realize it. So just make sure you're surrounding yourself with the best people and making objective decisions, setting milestones that are objective, measuring performance, rewarding performance. And, if people know you have a meritocracy, there'll be no room for psychophancy and all that. Okay, moving on.
Thank you so much, Ma. Justice, I'm sure your question has been answered. Another comment from Coyote. Emotional intelligence at the business premises is of great importance. This helps one to manage one's emotion as well as manage other people's emotions as well. Another comment from Forty. Communication could be verbal or non-verbal. Some people's facial or sign language can also tell what they think. Thank you, TF. Mary Andrews comments, you cannot be a successful leader if you cannot manage people. That's true. That's true, Ma. Thank you so much. Another comment from Emephisi. Thank you so much for the comprehensive training. It's worth millions of naira. Okay. Another comment from Messi. Thank you, Madam Angela, for the TOUA. We have learned a lot in this session on decision making and having key people around you. Indeed, these are key factors. Okay, another comment from Charles. I was among STB customers then at ABBA. I love their speed and customer relation. STB staff were the best in banking industry then. As a startup, how do you get the best staff with mega wage offer?
Yeah. So, I I think somebody asked that question
In the
in
last
one
session? Yeah.
yeah, I think somebody asked that question. And first and foremost, hire for the shared vision. I think hire someone who's going your way, who wants your vision. And there are other things that um you can attract people with, the responsibility. Maybe in a larger organization, they wouldn't be maybe the department head, so they're the functional head. When in a larger organization, they'll just be a part of the team. You're going somewhere. These are your aspirations for 5 years from now. You're going to be this. If they believe in your dream, they'll join you, and it aligns with their goals. And as another thing is, let people double hat. So at the beginning, you're starting an organization, you're not creating the head of HR, the head of this, the head of that, the head of that. Maybe some people have multiple skills and then they can play more than one role. And so you're getting, the biggest bang for your buck. So try and, get someone who has multiple skills that can head more than one area. So, when you're paying for this resource, you're getting more than, the cost of one area.
Thank you so much, Ma. Okay, we have comment from Salawu Rufai. Thank you so much, ma'am. A good decision making is key for every successful business. And without making a good decision, the business will go down in the long run. This is a nice session. Okay, another comment from Penny. You have set my conscience free when it comes to hiring. The phrase, don't make someone lose it or win it when they are close to you, but rather make the best man win. Make the best man for the role win. Make the best man for the role win. I think that's what she's trying to say. Okay, another comment. This is a question from Abel. What do you do when you have negative critiques amongst your team?
Let that person go. You don't want any toxic imputers. Because they're just going to make the environment toxic. Let the person go. Maybe address the issues, call the person, have a conversation with the person, find out what the issue is. But ultimately, if that person is going to keep on, that person is not aligned with you, so if they're constantly criticizing, they're not on the same train, let them go. If you cannot address that's not to say you shouldn't take criticism, but I got the sense that this person is constantly criticizing. And so the person doesn't believe in your dream and doesn't believe that you can address all the issues. So let them go.
Thank you so much, Ma. April, I'm sure your question has been answered as well. Another comment from Emerald. A leader should wear the ethos of his or her business, literally personify it. That way, those under them will emulate it. Comment from Michael. Thank you, TF, for the lessons learned so far. This is a life-changing session. From a comment from Abdurrahman. Indeed, I have learned that emotion should be set aside while recruiting. So, this is a question from Lush Green. What do we do when one of our team members is always insisting that her own idea is followed in all meetings? Another
So I think,
comment.
I
Okay,
think at
okay,
the end of the day, you guys, you need to have one-on-ones with these individuals. So if someone's always having their way, I think we talked about consensus in one of a TOE ways, management by consensus. And consensus is not 100% unanimity. They're minority voices. If you're the chairman of the meeting, at the end of the day, the chairman makes the decision. If you feel that the others had superior arguments, sometimes, that one individual may be right. So it's not to say that he or she is not right, but at the end of the day, you must go for consensus. It's the TOE way, management by consensus. And consensus is not 100% unanimity. Go for the superior argument. Remember the session we had on that. Okay, moving on. Let's take a couple more comments and then we can close this.
Okay. Another comment. Oh, this is from Josephine. I think she's reminding us of the assignment you gave them last week.
Oh,
You
good.
gave us an assignment from our last session on
I
the genius
forgot.
of and
Yes, good.
and the tyranny of A or B in decision making. So you
Thank
can
you.
drop your comment on that.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Adora, you didn't remind me on that. Good.
I'm so sorry. So we have another comment from Stella. Information worth keeping. When I grow up, I will use all of this. Now at the startup, I'll be careful and focus on the best staff, even if she is the only one. Okay, a comment from Braham. I was a manager of a printing company for 2 years and I learned this exact experience from my boss. You can only get the best of your staff when you keep them all happy. Another comment from Odutola. The series and sessions are so powerful and interesting. Okay, I think that's about the comments we have. Yeah.
On the genius of and examples, I think everyone should send their comments to TF. It would be nice to just get their comments. Unfortunately, I didn't remember that. I think 1 week had passed and I didn't remember we'd given that assignment. So well done. Thank you, guys. I learned a lot from you guys and I'm sure you're all going to put the TOE way into practice. Thank you. And make your businesses successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. Can we take one last question from an entrepreneur?
Go ahead.
I think he's been dropping his. Okay, he said, how do you manage staff that are older than you?
I think I addressed that already. TOE says, I addressed that already in one of the TOE ways. TOE says, he had to lead. I think, you just give respect. You show that you didn't just get the role because you're a nice guy, but you got the role because you were competent, you were the best man for the job. And people ultimately will respect competence. They will respect people who respect them at the end of the day. So yeah, if you can show that you add value to what it is you're asking them to do.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma, for this insightful session from Tuesday 1 to the last webinar. Thank you so much. And I'm sure everyone on the call gained a lot. We've been
Thank you.
seeing overwhelming comments of gratitude and thanks. So thank you
you.
everyone again for joining, and thank you for participating all through the sessions. We hope to see you at the next masterclass session. We'll send you an email on it, and also on your assignments, the assignments given. So you can send it to me. I'll send an email with a survey link where you can drop your comments on the session and also rate the sessions as well. Thank you so much, Ma, once again, and thank you everyone. Do have a great day.
Thank you, Adora, and thank you, everyone. God bless. Bye.